Hi, I'm Michael, and today I'm going to discuss how to install Power BI Desktop and how to connect that Power BI Desktop to a SQL Server as a data source. All right, let's get to it. So far, I've already installed Power BI Desktop just for ease of use. That way I can show you guys a little bit quicker. But I went to the Microsoft Store and I just typed it in. There, you can also go online and look at the Power BI Microsoft.com. You can go there, but it just requires you to use organizational accounts, and I don't happen to have one that I'm going to use for this, so I'm just using a personal one. You can just go Power BI, and you'll see Power BI Desktop. If you see this Power BI one, this one's going to show you just the reports, and this one I believe works with SSRS. So you'd want Power BI Desktop. I've already got that installed. So let's see what that looks like. Power BI. So I'm going to run. Okay, when you first pop up, you're going to see two different things. It's going to pop up with this. You can use get data source. I'll show you how to use it once it. Then this is the other screen that'll pop up right behind there. You can use Excel for that. You can use SQL Server. Use a few different other ones. Let's go through there. It's got a pretty large list of from data flows, which would be actually over in Power BI. If you have an organizational account like M365 and you happen to have a capacity, then you have data flows for that, which is a really cool tool. I'm not going to get into that in this video. Dataverse, which is a database up in the M365 O365 platform. I think it has underlying SQL, Azure SQL for it. This has got analysis services, which is SQL Server analysis services, text CSVs, web, OData. It's got a bunch more. You can see the long list pops up. Here it is. It's pretty large. So anyways, we're going to go to import from SQL Server. And I'm just going to use the local host. I won't be able to publish this just because I don't have an organizational account, so it's probably not going to let me put it in the cloud, but I'm going to just make a file for my computer and you can actually use it to report off your data. The next thing is you choose the server you're using. You can choose the database if you know what it is. You don't have to. You can look between the different databases in the next couple screens. One thing is you'll see import and direct query. Import is pretty much where you're going to be able to batch load this file up into the cloud, and it's not going to be live data. So whenever you do want to refresh this data, it's going to have to be scheduled. I think your free version, you get up to like 8 uh, before you need to 8 a day. And then if you go with 8, yeah, I think it's 8. Then whenever you buy premium, I think it goes up to like 48. So you can basically do it every half hour. Uh, direct query has a lot of limitations to it, but it is live data directly to the SQL Server, or it might be to a few other databases as well. We'll just do import for this. demo. And all right, here's the SQL statement. You can actually write out if you have a, a table or a view that you want to go, or maybe even if you have a nice query that you want to bring in that data with. Uh, but we're not going to use that for this. I'm going to show you the next part. So it has a few other options you could throw over here. I'm not too worried about them. All right. So then you're going to see your three different types of authentication. You've got your Windows, which is AD. You're going to have your database, which is going to be like SQL Server authentication. And then you're also going to have your Microsoft. So if you don't have Microsoft authentication enabled on your SQL Server, which most of the time people don't, unless you're using Azure SQL database or managed instance, then you're probably going to want to use database or Windows. Database might be the best for these situations, but let's see. Let's see if that'll work. And this is just kind of a generic thing. It's going to say that we're unable to connect to the data source using encrypted connection. I believe that's pretty common. I've seen this pop up a million times, and it still allows you to go forward. It just tells you that this isn't going to be encrypted. All right, so you're going to see the instance name and then the databases that you have. If you have a few databases, then you'd see all them down here as well. I happen to only have this one, so I'm just going to open it up and say you've got a few different tables you want to use. Uh, we'll just choose a couple of these. Users, batches, and you'll get a nice little preview over here. One thing is, if you do connect too much in here, it will probably run out your RAM or your resources on your computer, just because it is going to try to put it all into this one session. I don't think it's going to do this, but I'm going to play around with it real quick. I'm just going to use maybe a smaller table out of here. Let's check the database. Let's see, I think users are relatively small. Wouldn't want to use something like comments. I believe that would be really large. Sorry. And this is only about 57 meg, so that's not too large. So we'll just go ahead with that. All right, load it. You can actually transform the data over here as well. This is going to use Power Query. We'll look at that real quick. And you can kind of see where what all you can change over here. I'm not super well versed in Power Query, but there's a lot of different things you can do. You can add more sources. You can change the types of your data. You can split it. You can pivot. You can do a lot with it, but it's all going to come back to a cost. So usually I don't like to mess with too much of the data over here. If I can do a lot of it server side or pre report wise, I'll try to get it done in the SQL Server side. But sometimes this is also the same interface you'll deal with if you're working with data flows, Microsoft Power BI data flow, which is basically going to use one of these data sources and bring it up to the cloud, and then you can reuse those. If you build this report, you're making a data set which is only going to be able to be used for the way it is. If you have a data flow, you can use multiple data flow tables and combine them into other data sets. But basically, the only way to change a data set is to republish it. So let's close and apply. I'm not going to change anything. See if I got my data over here. When I apply changes, and it is getting all the rows in here. So you could see that it would be It could be pretty large for your data sets over here, or your resources for your machine if you tried to put this all on one thing, especially if you got a really large uh, table. And I just saw there was 299,000 rows on there. One thing that I remembered from the direct queries, I believe it had a 1 million row limit. So if you have over a million rows and that you're trying to bring in, that wouldn't be something you want to use. All right, so now we can basically just click down everything you want, and it's going to make a table structure. Then you can basically go through and change this however you want. Maybe you decide that you want to change this to a different thing. Maybe you want to be a stack bar chart, and you have all this information on here. You can go through all these visualizations. You can change which is on the y-axis, the x-axis, change the legends. Uh, not super good at this. The language that you'd be doing a lot of these manipulations in would be the DAX language, which I believe is used for a lot of Power Query. So if you do have any other uh, questions on that, I would probably look into what are they? Guy in a Cube. I believe they have a really good channel for that. But otherwise, I think that that's all I have for you guys. Thank you for sticking around, and see you in the next video.